Glad you're here today. If you're visiting with us, please fill out one of these. We'd love to hear back from you, who you are, so we can follow up with you later this week. This is a busy weekend for a lot of folks in Southside. We have families that are gone this weekend because kids are graduating from college, and that's always a good thing. Good thing, hopefully mom and dad don't have to pay any more bills, right? And we got folks that sent me little text messages like, I won't be there because my kids were out at the prom last night, okay? So we'll pray for the prom queens, all right? Glad you're here today, all right? Take out your sermon notes and let's get started this morning. If you're visiting with us, we're in a series I started last week called Getting Margin Back in Your Life, okay? As I look around at people, I see people stressed all the time. We're running here and there. We're trying to catch up with ourselves. It's almost like the further we try to get ahead, the further behind we find ourselves. And so last week I gave you a definition of margin, and it is this. Margin is the space between my load and my limits. It's what I have to do and how much energy I have left to do it. And margin is something you need. You need some breathing room in your life. You need some reserve in your life, because if you don't have it, you will certainly run out of it. You need physical margin to keep up with all the things you have to do physically. There's all kinds of margins you need, like emotional margins. If you don't have enough emotional margins, you're going to be short-fused with people, irritable. You need financial margins so that you don't find yourself getting further and further in debt. You need time margins so you can space yourself between things you've got to do, okay? You need this kind of margin. You need financial margin. You need spiritual margin so that you don't cave into temptation when it comes. Today, the sermon is titled, Slowing Down in a High-Speed Culture. We are just running and running and running. And if you want to make a lot of money today, the best way to do it, according to the top financial experts, is teach people how to maximize their time. Because we all have the same amount of time. And if you can teach people how to better use their time, you will make a lot more money from it. And if you look at our culture today, especially Wilmington, it seems like everybody is in warp drive. I don't know about you, but when I drive down College Road or Independence or Shipyard or Carolina Beach Road, you name it, it's like people are booking. I mean, they are flying. I mean, they're just zigzagging. There was this car the other day, this young girl. She was literally going back. She'd get behind me, and she'd get behind the car in front of me. She'd get behind me, get the car on the next line. She just kept doing this. And finally, she almost went between us. She got that impatient. And I'm like, sweetheart, where are you going? I don't know where she was headed, but I hope she got there, all right? And today we live in this hurry-scurry world. I recently read this, that sales of frozen juice has declined by 13%, and the sale of frozen juice concentrate is down 39% because people can't wait that long anymore for it to thaw out. So they're not buying frozen juice anymore. Several years ago, USA Today said this. Today, people are souped up, stressed out, and overscheduled. In this brave new world, boundaries between work and family are disappearing. Everyone is mobile, and every moment of the day is scheduled with daycare, school, and after-school activities, and 10 to 12-hour workdays. This pressure cooker lifestyle is so real that anthropologists are now studying it to see how it will affect us. Recently, in another magazine I read called Fast Company, it's an article that just looks at how to live in our culture. They went and asked kids this. Said, if you were granted one wish to change one thing about your mom or your dad and their work, what would that wish be? Parents were then asked whether they thought their own children would respond, okay? Most of the parents got it wrong. In fact, 98% of the parents got it wrong. Now, don't bring it up yet. What do you think the kids said? They could change one thing about their parents' schedule. What would it be? More time with mom and dad. You got it wrong. Bring it up. Here's what the kids said. Nearly 56% of the parents assumed that their child's top choice would be to spend more time together. But in fact, only 10% of the kids surveyed said they'd like more time with mothers, and 15.5% said they'd like more time with their fathers. Now, here's what the kids said they would like. By contrast, 34% of the kids said that they wanted most for their parents is to be less stressed and less tired because of their work. One kid said, I wish mom wasn't so tired and stressed all the time. I wish dad wasn't so tired and stressed all the time. Astonishingly, just 2% of parents guess that this would be their children's highest priority. Do you see what the kid said? It's no longer about being together as a family. Who wants to be with mom and dad when they're irritable, they're short-fused, they're angry, they don't have time for you? Kids know when you have time for them or not. They know when you're giving them your undivided attention. And so kids say today, hey, yeah, I'd like time, but more than that, I want my parents to be less stressed. And this is so pervasive today in our culture that anthropologists are now studying the long-term effects on us as a culture and as a people because it takes a toll on us. Now, they can do all the studies they want. The Bible has already told us the effects that this would have on us. And so this morning, I'm going to give you, first of all, 5 ways this kind of hurry, no margin life hurts us, and then 5 things you can start doing as an antidote to get your life with more margin, all right? So let's look at first. What are the first 5 ways that this hurts you? First of all, hurry always increases my stress. You can be busy all the time. You can just be going and going and going and going. You don't have time for yourself. Solomon wrote this in the Song of Solomon. He says, I have no time to care for myself. Anybody relate to that? Some of you need to put that verse on your refrigerator door, on the mirror in your bathroom, because you have no time for yourself. You're running here, you're running there, you're going this, you're doing that. You have no time for yourself. And when you have no margin in your life, you're not going to take care of yourself. And you can't take care of the people you need to take care of. And that lack of margin creates unbelievable stress. When you're always in a hurry, you're going to be stressed out. Here's the second way this hurts us. Hurry always decreases my joy. It's been shown the faster you go, the less joy you have in life. You know, I was a pilot for years. Chip here is a commercial pilot. He flies people like you and me all across the country, all right? If you've ever been up in a plane, you're flying across America, you look out, and it's beautiful. I mean, you can see a lot of land, but you can't see details of it. You're flying about 500 miles an hour in a typical jet airliner, but you can't see the details. Now, if you wanted to see the details, what if you drove across America? You'd see more details, right? How about this? If you rode your bicycle across America, would you see more details? Some of you going, he's nuts. How about this one? What if you walked across America? Would you see more details? Yes. The slower you go, the more you see, the more you experience. The faster you go, the less you can. And hurry always decreases our joy. Job writes this in Job. My days go by faster than a runner. They fly away without my seeing any joy. I just turned 61. I like to reverse that. I tell people I'm actually 16. I read backwards, all right? Here's what I've noticed. It literally seems like yesterday I was 16. You might know what I'm talking about? I woke up and all of a sudden I'm 61. Where did it go? Emmy has said to her mother and I, Daddy, Mommy, it just hit me. Y'all are closer to death than most of my friends' parents. You know what I said to her? You're closer to death than I am right now if you keep this up. It's true. Most of her friends' parents are in their 40s. They're not in their 60s. And all of a sudden, life just goes, and you look up, and you're now a senior adult. Here's another thing I've learned about how this hurts us. Hurry always makes me less productive. It just makes you less productive. Study after study has proven, they've done MRIs on people who multitask. And here's what they've discovered. If you are in a habit of consistently multitasking, you are creating permanent brain damage. Some of you are going, well, now I have an excuse. God did not wire us to multitask. One of the areas that gets affected the most is the anterior cognitive cortex, the area that gives you compassion and love and empathy. It's no wonder we're short-fused with each other. We're destroying that part of our brain that creates that for us. We were never designed to multitask. But in our culture, we are expected to do it. Proverbs 19:2 says, a person in a hurry makes mistakes. You know that's true. You're in a hurry, and all of a sudden you put the wrong thing in the recipe that you're cooking. Or you're in a hurry, and you hurry. You make the wrong turn. Anybody made a wrong turn in a hurry? Yes, we've all done it. Hurry just creates mistakes. Studies have shown that people who are creatively long-term do two things. First, they pace themselves by working the hours that work for them. And second, they take time for solitude. Proverbs 21:5 puts it this way. Careful planning puts you ahead in the long run. Hurry and scurry puts you further behind. It just does. Here's my point. I can't keep charging without recharging. When I do not recharge, then something gets discharged. If you're not recharging your batteries correctly, you're going to discharge irritability, anger, frustration. It's going to take a toll on you. And the people you love are going to pay the biggest price for this. You can't keep charging into life without recharging. If you do, you're going to discharge the wrong things. Here's the fourth thing that hurts me. Hurry always dries up my love. I mean, when you get in a hurry, you start skimming on the relationships that matter the most to you. And the people who pay for this are the people you love the most, and they love you the most, and we think they'll handle it, they'll take it, they'll deal with it, because they just know, I'm working hard, I'm doing this, I'm doing my best. Well, 1 Corinthians 13:3 puts it this way. Without love, I am no good to anybody. I love how the Message translation puts it. It says, without love, I am bankrupt. When I'm in a hurry, my love gets bankrupt. My relationships get injured. Here's a fifth way I get hurt. Hurry always keeps me from hearing God. It always keeps you from hearing God. Hurry is the death of prayer. You can't be riding down the road and praying the way you should be praying and hear from God. You can't do it. You can't say, God, I'm in a rush. All right, tell me what I need to know. It's not going to happen. David writes this in the book of Psalms. Be still and know that I'm God. You have to stop. You have to turn off the digital devices. You have to get alone by yourself for God to speak to you. Not allowing for a quiet time in your life each day, there's no way God can speak to you. No matter what you do, you're like this guy in this picture here. Look at him. He's multitasking. He's driving, he's drinking, and he's listening to the music. Nobody can get through to him. And that's what many of us do. We just got so much going on, we've tuned God out. We cannot focus. We cannot listen. All we're doing is this, and this. And I imagine if they'd waited to take a picture, he'd probably spilled some of that water on him. He'd had to hit the brakes. Stress and worry and hurry are the death of hearing from God. Studies have shown this. The average American looks at their cell phone 80 times a day. Some of you are going, not me. Why don't you this week, just for fun, count the number of times you look at your cell phone? The average American looks at it 80 times a day. Stress and worry and hurry is just the kill. It kills us hearing from God. Now, those are the negative things. Now, let me give you 5 lessons you can start working on now to counteract that. These are lessons that you and I need to learn in order to create margin in my life. First, I must learn the lesson of being content. You got to learn the lesson of being content. Paul writes in Philippians 4:11, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I want you to circle that one word, learned. You have to learn this. We're not born with this. The Greek word that is translated as learn is artokrakes. It literally means to be self-sufficient. It describes the person who has enough discipline in their life. They're independent of external circumstances and possessing a lot of material things. And what Philippians 4:11 tells us, it tells us that first, 2 things. We have to be content. And the second thing it tells us, we have to learn to be content. We are not naturally contented people. We're not happy with everything in our life. We always want the next thing, the better thing. So we have to learn how to be content. And that you're serious about slowing down the pace of your life. You've got to learn to be content with what you already have. I love what biblical scholar Stephen Fowle writes. Abundance simply shifts one's focus from getting things to keeping the things one has. That's all it does. So I got a few questions here for you. What keeps you pushing for more and more and more and more? More activities in your schedule, more achievements in your career, more money in your bank account, more experiences that you want to chalk up or mark off on your bucket list. Now, there's nothing wrong with ambition. Ambition is a great motivator. It gets us to do things. But ambition out of control is a very destructive force. And in our society today, we don't know the meaning of slowing down. We just go, 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 go. And on top of that, ambition can be motivated by some negative things. You can have great ambition, but it's motivated by fear. Fear you're not going to have enough. It can be motivated by insecurity. You want things to make you feel better. It can be motivated by insecurity, guilt, revenge, anger, ego, rage. Just because we're ambitious, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. If you want to know if you're motivated correctly, is it motivated out of love? See, I believe this, that the most common driving force that causes people to overwork, to fill up their schedules, to do more than is really sane and necessary is insecurity. And that is the longing for belonging and the longing for approval. We want people to like us. We want people to love us. We want to feel like we're part of something. And we have bought this lie that our worth is determined by our work, the things we do. Worth is never determined by work. It is determined by whose you are. You were created by God and for God. He loves you. He died for you. He came out of the grave for you. He has a purpose and a plan for your life. He has a home for you in heaven. So the starting point of this is to remind yourself who you belong to. And part of that is you have to start reducing some of your activities. The starting point in having anything healthy, a healthy pace in your life, is to be contented with who you are and what you already have. Ecclesiastes puts it this way. It is better to have only a little with peace of mind than be busy all the time. You know, all those things we go out and buy, all those things we finance, all those things we're doing, we're working and working and working and working and working to pay for things that will not last. We acquire and we acquire and we acquire and we acquire. So now we got to work longer hours, more hours, get a second job, get a second mortgage to pay for things. And all the time, we're suffering, our family's suffering, our relationship to God is suffering. Solomon knew it's better to have little than to be busy all the time. You need to ask yourself, will having more make me happier? Will having more give me joy? No, I don't think it will, because if you're not happy with what you already have, you're not going to be happy with more. Here's another thing that gets us. It's called comparison. Now, when Facebook and all the social media came out, it was great, but social media has done more to cause us to compare our lives to somebody else. Have you ever gone on social media and just checked how many likes you got? Or how many likes somebody else got? You go, this person, man, they got 250 likes. I only got 2. Social media has done more to make us compare our lives to other people. And if you notice on social media, they only put the best stuff out there. They only put the best pictures, the best of everything out there. And what social media has done is caused us to compare our lives with other people. Solomon writes this in Proverbs. A relaxed attitude lengthens a man's life, but jealousy rots it away. The New Living puts it this way. Jealousy is like a cancer. It eats away at the bones. So we get jealous, we get envious, we start comparing our lives to other people. And all that comparing takes away our contentment. And the problem is we compare ourselves to other people around us. I've noticed this. When you go on a date, For some of you this weekend, this was prom weekend. How many of you remember your prom? Some of you are going, it's been so long, I don't even know. When you go on a prom, or you go on any date, you look your best, don't you? I mean, you want to smell good, look good. Guys, you want to impress that girl. Girls, you want to impress that guy. I mean, it's all about that, isn't it? And you date, and all you do, you just make sure you look good, smell good, look good, smell good, look good, and smell good. And then you get married, and then reality sets in. You wake up, and you go, girl, where's the makeup? Because when you date, you put on your best face. Let me tell you this. Here's the real you. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, throw yourself across the bed, legs over the side of the bed. Take a picture of yourself right there. Put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, because that's the real you. I'm telling you, you put that picture out there, we can smell the bad breath in it. That's the real you. Not the polished, not the well-dressed. That's the real you. So we live in a culture that pushes us to look good, smell good, and I'm not against that, but it's not the real us because it causes us to compare ourselves to other people. Here's a second lesson we need to learn. I must learn to say no. If you're going to have a less stressful life, you got to learn to say no to some things. You not only need a to-do list, you need a don't-do list. Many years ago, when Ronald Reagan was president, his wife, Nancy Reagan, started a great drug campaign, and it's simply one line, just say what? No. There's nothing wrong in that. It's a great drug campaign, anti-drug campaign. Just say no, okay? But some of you, you are addicted to what I call, you're not addicted to drugs, you're just addicted to speed. I don't mean amphetamines, I mean you're addicted to the speed of life. You love a full day, you love going, you love filling it up with stuff. You just go. And you don't want to slow down. Because you're afraid that when you slow down and you lay your head on the pillow at night, all those things are going to come back to you. All those hurts and fears and worries are going to torment you. You know, I wonder how many of us today have a hard time saying no. I think all of us do. I think 100% of us. Because we're taught as Christians we're to serve and we're to love and we're to help people. But even you have a limit. Even Jesus had a limit. The Bible tells us that Jesus took time to get away, to rest, to relax, to recharge his batteries. So you've got to have some boundaries in your life. If you don't, you're just going to burn up and burn out. Proverbs 20 says this, an impulsive vow is a trap. Later you wish you could get out of it. How many of you have ever made a decision you wish you could have gotten out of? I didn't say marriage. I just said a decision, okay? All right? We've all done that. Circle what he's got up there. Later you wish. An impulsive vow is a trap. It's a trap. What is he saying here? I mean, we just all of a sudden somebody asks, can you help me with this? Sure, I'll be glad to do this. Here's what I'm saying. Here's what he's saying. Don't decide without deliberating. In other words, don't make a promise without pondering it. So don't decide without deliberating. Don't make a promise without pondering it. Jesus put it this way. Don't begin or commit to anything until you count the cost. So we are to choose our commitments carefully. So don't make an impulsive decision. Yeah, I'll help you. I'll be glad to do that. I'll do that, sure. And what is Proverbs 20 telling us here? It's telling us this. It's your next fill-in. It's always easier to get in than it is to get out. It's always easier to get into something than to get out of it. It's easier. Isn't it easier to get into debt than to get out of debt? Yes. Is it easier to get into a relationship than to get out of a relationship? Yes. Is it easier to get into trouble than out of trouble? Yes. Is it easier to gain weight than to take it off? Yes. Oh, I heard our testimonies right there. Believe me, I know that. I stayed 188 pounds till about my mid-40s. And I woke up one morning, and I'd gone from 188 overnight to like 250 pounds. I was a full gospel preacher. Y'all like that, don't you? And it wasn't full of the Spirit, I'm telling you that, all right? And so that's when I became a runner. I started running. We lived in Louisville, Kentucky at the time, and Louisville's hills. It's just up and down. And I would run as far as I go, and I'd just stop. I'd run as far as I could go, and I'd just stop. Eventually, I could run 5 miles, 10 miles, 13 miles. And I went from 250 pounds down to about 175. My wife said I looked anorexic. Here's what I learned. It's easier to put on the weight than it is to get it off. We all know that. It's always easier to get into something than it is to get it out, to get it off. And the big mistake that we make here is the same mistake everybody makes. We think I can just add more to my schedule and I can handle it. So when you're considering to doing something new, ask yourself this question: what am I going to do? What am I going to give up? You got to ask yourself, if I'm going to take this on, what now am I going to give up to do this activity? You can't keep taking. You got to give up some things. You can have so many irons in the fire, you put out the fire. You can burn the candle at both ends, and you're not as bright as you think you are. In fact, that phrase, you can burn the candle at both ends, is an 18th century phrase that referred to reckless waste. Because in those days, people were dirt poor. They were even guarded about how long they burned their candles. So you need to ask yourself, what do I need to give up to do this? Activity does not equal productivity. You can be going and going and going, but all this activity doesn't mean you're being productive. It just means you're being active. So what do? Here's what you need to do. Here's a suggestion for you. Create a what matters most list. Between now and the end of this year, what matters most to you? In other words, between now and December 31st, what do I really want to do this year? All right? Then what do you got to let go of to do it? So you got to give up some things to do the things that matter the most. Some of you have tried all kinds of diets. You ever considered an activity diet? You got to give up some activity. What are you going to cut in order to do this now? I know what some of you are thinking. You're sitting there saying, Pastor Kelly, I'd like to say, how do I say no? Audrey will tell you, I'm the world's worst at saying no. I'll just take on and take on and take on and take on. And I'll find myself spread ultimately thin. Well, the Bible tells us. In fact, in a few weeks, we're going to look at this more in depth. But Paul writes this in the book of Titus. The grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all people. It teaches us to say what? No. It is God's grace that teaches you to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age. Now, we're going to look at this more in depth in the next 2 sermons. How does that work in our life? How do you get the power to say no? From God's grace. Lesson number 3 we all need to learn. If I want more margin in my life, I want to slow down, I must learn to take a weekly Sabbath day of rest. When Audrey was proofing my slides, she goes, you say this all the time. You teach this all the time. You just never do it. I'll be honest with you. I love work. I love it. I love work. And I'm the world's worst at taking a Sabbath day of rest. You think about all the commandments God's given us. Think of the top 10. They're called the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments was not given to us to help God. They were given to help us. And if you honor those 10 Commandments, your life's going to be more happier, joyful, less stressful. But think about it. Up there with don't commit murder, don't commit adultery, is take a Sabbath day of rest. God puts it this way in the book of Exodus. You have 6 days in which to do your work, but the 7th day is a day of rest dedicated to me. But the seventh day is a day of rest dedicated to me. On that day, no one is to work, neither you, your children, your slaves, your animals, nor the foreigners who live in your country. No one is to what? Oh, you're weak on that one. No one is to what? Work. It's not optional, folks. This is a command from God. And here's what we're learning. Because we are working 6, 7 days a week, going 16 hours a day, we're dying a whole lot sooner. We're dying a whole lot sooner. My generation is going out faster because we don't take a Sabbath day of rest. We go and we go and we go and we go. Rest and relaxation are so important to your well-being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. God put it in the top 10. It doesn't matter which day you take as long as you take one. Sunday is not my Sabbath day. Monday is. That's when I attempt to take my Sabbath day. Jesus put it this way in Mark. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people through rest, not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath through more work. And that means that your Sabbath is not for you to do things you didn't get done the other 6 days of the week. Rest means rest. It doesn't mean you're out fixing something, you're mowing something, you're trimming something, you're painting something, unless you're painting art that's relaxing for you. And if you're self-employed or you're salaried, it's even worse for you because you're expected to work more than 40 hours. You may work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So it's even more important for you to be disciplined by this. So you're going, okay, Pastor, I get it, I'm supposed to take a day off. You shouldn't even call it your day off. Because if you call it your day off, you're going to think it's a day to do other things. You should call it your Sabbath. The Hebrew is Shabbat. It's a day to rest, day to relax. You see, if you're not taking a day off every week, you're breaking one of the top 10 commandments. Let me say it again. If you're not taking a day off once a week, you're breaking one of the top 10 commandments by God. You don't use it to catch up on other things. Yesterday, Audrey will tell you, is one of the first few Saturdays I've just relaxed. We just sat around, we watched TV, we talked, we made breakfast. I hadn't done that in so long, I've forgotten what it felt like. I had intentionally got the yard mowed on Friday so I could relax on Saturday. I haven't just laid around in a long time, just watching TV, mindless TV. It felt good. But I'll tell you this, I felt guilty. Because my nature is to go, go, go. So what do you do on your Sabbath day? I'm so glad you asked. Let me give you some things you do on your Sabbath day. First, you rest your body. You just got to rest your body. If you don't take time, if you don't let your body rest, it will force you to rest. If you don't take time to lay down beside those green pastures, as Psalm 23 says, your body will force you to lay down beside green pastures. It's called a cemetery. Oh, you laughed on that one, didn't you? But it's the truth. Here's my point. My best requires rest. If you want to be at your best, it requires rest. I shared this with you a few years ago. I'm going to remind you again. The French Revolution, which started in 1789, was a government movement led by Maximilien Robespierre to de-Christianize France. Anything Christian was either removed or destroyed. Crosses and Christian monuments were destroyed. Christian graves were desecrated, including the Saint Guinevere, the patron saint of Paris. He had over 40,000 people beheaded in Paris alone. If you were clergy, you were executed. He took the churches in France and turned them into brothels and bars. He took a 7-day week and made it a 10-day week with a 10-month calendar year. He even changed how long you worked. You worked for 10 hours, with each hour having 100 minutes. That's 16.6-hour work days. During the French Revolution, the French government canceled the Sabbath and said every day is going to be a work day. After a couple of years, they had to reinstate it because the health of the nation had crumbled. You need a Sabbath day of rest. So what else do you do? What do you do on your Sabbath? I recharge my emotions. How do you do that? There's a lot of different ways. Through quietness, sitting in a place, sitting with people you love. I'm referring to not competitive sports, because you're going to work yourself up. You may say, well, Pastor Kelly, I feel guilty when I relax. Well, guess what? Jesus didn't. I heard about a pastor who was, a guy called him up and said, Pastor, I tried to get a hold of you on Monday. The pastor said, I'm sorry, that's my day off. And the guy says, well, Pastor, don't you know the devil never takes a day off? The pastor said, yeah, if I didn't, I'd be just like the devil. And that's us. We get angry. We get short-fused. Your body requires rest. Your best requires rest. So what do you do on your Sabbath? Here's the third thing. I refocus my spirit. That's what you're doing here, worship. This is why worship is so important for you. It takes the focus off of you. It puts it on somebody bigger than you named Jesus Christ. Worship can energize you. It can empower you. It can replenish you. It can relax you. It can nurture you. Worship does something that no sport can do, fishing can't do, golfing can't do, sleeping can't do, watching TV can't do. Worship does something that nothing else can do. This is why you need to be in worship every week. This is why you need to be here, so you can recharge your spirit. This is why you need a personal quiet time every day where you're just stopping and focusing on God. If you're too busy for God, then you're just too busy. I love what Jesus said in Matthew 11. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Circle that phrase. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. You and I need to learn the unforced rhythms of grace. We need to slow our lives down. We need to have a little rest and relaxation in our schedules. The Bible says in Psalm 127 this, it is useless to rise up early and go to bed late and work your worried fingers to the bone. Don't you know that God enjoys giving rest to those he loves? I mean, what a great verse. Put that on your refrigeration door. Now let me warn you, if you don't slow down by choice, life will make you slow down. Here's a fourth lesson we all need to learn. I must learn to trust in God's perfect timing. Discontent is one of the biggest characteristics of all of us, especially when it comes to our prayer life. We pray to God, we want God to do something, we pour out our heart to him, and we keep waiting for the answer, and it doesn't come. It doesn't come, and we become more discontented with it. You see, impatience is caused by a lack of trust. And when we don't trust God, when we don't wait on God, we have a tendency to take matters in our own hands, and we mess things up. God had told Abraham at age 75, I'm calling you, and I'm going to give you a son, and I'm going to make you a great nation. Abraham says, great, all right. 10 years goes by. There's still no son. So Abraham says, all right, I'll just take Eliezer and make him my adopted son. And God says, don't do that. He messed things up. A few more years goes by. He won't wait on God's perfect timing. Sarah won't wait on God's perfect timing. Sarah says, take my maidservant Hagar, have a child through hers, and it'll be my son. That came Ishmael. Ishmael is the father of the Arab people. You see, if Abraham had waited on God's perfect timing, we would not have Islamic terrorist attacks today in this world, because there would be no Arabs. He would not wait on God's perfect timing. And when you and I will not wait on God's perfect timing, we mess everything up. It's kind of like that old advertisement. We will serve no wine before it's time. Do you know how long it takes Monterey cheese to cure? 1 month. You can share this tomorrow at work. Blue cheese. You know how long it takes to age? 3 to 6 months, depending on the cheese. I didn't know this. Parmesan cheese. Parmesan cheese. You know how long it takes? 12 months to age. You know that smaller mushrooms take about 6 hours to grow to maturity? An oak tree takes 60 years. So what do you want to be? A small mushroom or an oak tree? I can show you, I can teach you how to grow spiritually, but I can't show you how to do it quickly. The Bible says that God has a plan for your life, a purpose for your life. He has a timetable for it, and if you will wait on it, you will learn it. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3, God does everything just right and on time. But people can never completely understand what he's doing. Circle that, right and on time. God does everything right and on time. He's right about your life. He's right about the timing of things in your life. So why doesn't God tell us everything up front? He wants us to trust him. He wants us to trust his perfect timing. And if you want to slow down the pace of your life, you've got to learn to trust God's perfect timing. You can't get in a hurry. You can't push it. God said this through the prophet Habakkuk. The things that I plan won't happen right away. Slowly, steadily, surely, the time approaches when the vision will be fulfilled. If it seems slow, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. So we've got to learn to wait on God, to trust God. Sometimes God takes us through some difficult times to teach us some things about how to wait on him. This was Paul's testimony in 2 Corinthians. He writes, we suffered so that we would stop trusting ourselves and learn to trust God who brings the dead back to life. That tough time you've gone through, or that tough time you're going through, God's trying to teach you some things. He wants you to learn to trust in him. Now, here's the last one. Here's the last one. What's the last lesson we need to learn? I must learn to use love as my filter. You and I need to learn to use love as my filter. A filter for everything. Your money, your energy, everything. Your time. We need to learn to use love as a filter for everything in our life. Paul writes this in Ephesians 5:2. Mostly what God does is love you. You get that? Mostly what he does, he just loves you. Keep company with him and learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something from us, but to give everything of himself to us. Love like that. So how do you use love as a filter? When you're called, do I do this or do that? Should I choose this option or should I choose this option? Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians. Do everything in love. Do everything in love. Jesus put it this way. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you need to ask a question here. Here's the question you need to ask. What is the loving thing to do here right now? You ever watch NASCAR? A Formula One race? They have a car in there called the pace car. The pace car sets the pace for everything in the race. It's out front of all the other cars for a reason, to set the pace of what the race will be like. And when he speeds up, everybody speeds up. When he slows down, everybody slows down. So all of us need a pace car in our life, and his name is Jesus Christ. I want to read a little poem to you. I just came across this when I was in college. It's called Slow Me Down, Lord. Slow me down, Lord. Ease the pounding of my heart by the quieting of my mind. Steady my hurried pace with a vision of the eternal reach of time. Give me, amidst the confusion in my day, the calmness of the everlasting hills. Break the tension of my nerves with soothing music of the singing streams that live in my memory. Help me, Lord, to know the restoring power of sleep. Teach me the art of taking minute vacations, of slowing down to look at a flower, to pat a stray dog, to chat with an old friend, or to make a new one. Teach me to watch a spider build a web, or to smile at a child, or to read a few lines from a good book. Remind me, Lord, each day that the race is not always to the swift, that there's more to life than just increasing its speed. Lord, let me look upward into the branches of the towering oak and know that it grew strong and tall because it grew slowly and it grew well. Slow me down, Lord. Are you tired of being overloaded? You're tired of being stressed out? Tired of feeling like you're passing yourself coming and going? Then you need margin in your life. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to give you more details on how to add this margin in some very specific areas of your life. And so my challenge to all of us today is that you'll take these 5 lessons, and between now and next Sunday, start applying them to your life. If you're going to add something else to your life, what are you going to give up? Are you going to take a Sabbath day of rest? I mean, rest. You don't mow the yard. You don't paint the house. You don't fix something. You rest. You relax. David writes this in Psalm 51:10. God, make a fresh start in me. Shape a Genesis week from the chaos of my mind. Southside, that's how to start establishing margin back in your life. Let's pray.